Second, which debuted in May of 1992, tells the story of Harley Stone, played by the one and only Rutger Hauer. We follow the maverick, anxiety-riddled cop through 2008's London, which has been ravaged by rats, pollution, and flooding caused by global warming. But the bigger problem is a 10-foot tall, demon-toothed psychopath who rips his victims' hearts out through their chests and eats them. With the help of his partner, a by-the-book Boy Scout schoolboy, a shitload of sugar, and big fucking guns, Harley sets out to stop the satanic killer before he can fulfill his plan. What is this plan? Well, that's what me and my guest, Mr. Michael Donovan Horn, are going to talk about on this third episode of I Love This Movie.
Satan is a deep shit.
Welcome, Mr. Horn, back to the channel.
Hey, what's going on, Lindsay? How you doing?
Good. I'm so glad we got you back on to just talk about a regular movie.
Oh, yeah. So it's so great to have. Thanks for having me back. It's great to be here.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be fun.
It is going to be fun. Because the last time you were on, we talked about the film you wrote, The Dinner Party.
Mm-hmm.
And we briefly talked about your new film that is coming out soon, Demigod.
Right. It's getting a day-to-day release online and for streaming, and it is actually getting a theatrical release as well.
That's awesome.
Which is really cool because this is the kind of movie you kind of want to see in a theater.
See in the theater, yes.
Grand in its scope. So
yeah, some of the pictures that have been shown that Miles had shared look very, very atmospheric and spooky.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's good. Nathan Tape, our cinematographer, was fantastic. I mean, he bought all these anamorphic, like wide angle lenses for the forest right before we started shooting, and I mean, all of his shots, I mean, it looks gorgeous on screen.
Mm-hmm.
And Rachel Nichols, who was our main, and Johan Smiles, I mean, they did such a good job. I mean, they played their parts really well, and it's just so much fun to just watch it come alive on screen.
Mm-hmm.
Something that came out of your head that you wrote down, and they're actually saying it and doing it, and they're doing it very well. It's just such a kick, you know. So we're very excited about that coming out.
That's awesome. Well, when I approached you about doing this show, I said, shoot me 3 movies, we'll pick one. And I was so happy that you included Split Second because I fucking love this movie.
What did I said my choices were The Monster Squad, Split Second, and I can't remember the third one.
I can't remember either.
I can't remember, but it was a really big one. But then you just messaged me back. You were like, Split Second? Like, with the Split Second with Rutger Hauer? Like, yes! I was like, okay, I guess we're doing that one.
Yes. Well, when did you first see this movie?
Oh my gosh. I first saw this movie, I think it was like 12 or 13. My cousin Chad, my first cousin Chad, who lives in Kansas, he would come, of course, all the time and stay at, a house with me to come visit, stuff like that. And we had this great thing we did where we would, my parents' house has this, huge basement, and we had, TV down there, and my parents got, when we were kids, it was a very small TV, and then I moved out of college and they got the huge widescreen. But we had this small TV up here on the, thing, and we had cable and all the channels, and Chad and I would bring out our sleeping bags and sleep right there in front of the TV and eat snacks and stuff like that. And we did this, we had the whole routine down. We'd watch movies and stuff, and then around maybe 10, 11-ish, we would pretend to go to sleep. And it's great because Chad was the whiz. He knew I learned everything from this kid. He's like, all right, when your mom comes down, don't move, and whatever you do, make sure you breathe in and out real slow, because that's what people do when they sleep. And I was like, really? He's like, oh yeah, man, they don't breathe like that. People are sleeping, they're really relaxed, so do that. I'm like, okay. And it worked every time. Mom would come down and be like, well, they're asleep, go back upstairs. We'd wait about 15 minutes to make sure they were asleep, and then wake back up, because we never wake back up. And then we would turn the TV back on, and we would find just the craziest, most interesting movies to watch at till 3 in the morning, And like this, I remember like one of the ones we found was Body of Evidence with Madonna,
Oh my gosh, yes.
which was on at like 1 a.m. We're both like two 13-year-olds just like, this movie is awesome. And we found so many movies that way, and I found so many movies that way, and it was so much fun. And then I remember one night we were watching, and we didn't see the whole movie first off because we were just
Mhm.
flipping through channels, and we came in about like 15 or 20 minutes into it.
Okay.
And he was like, isn't that the guy from Blade Runner? Like, you're Rutger Hauer? I'm like, yeah, I think so. And then we'd have no idea who anybody else was.
No.
But we were like, what is this? And of course, we just kept watching it. We're like, this is like the greatest movie ever. Because it just kept getting more and more interesting
Mhm.
and like appallingly, gleefully absurd.
Yes.
And like, because they're just like I very rarely call a movie bonkers. You know,
Mhm.
they don't like to put that kind of a title on a movie. There's always something deeper, something going on. But this movie is just plain bonkers.
Bonkers.
You've got, I mean, the production design is really cool. You've got
Mhm.
all the rain, all the water, the rain, everything is just drenched in like blacks and blues and grays,
Yes.
and it's very interesting to watch. And everything is just gross. There are
Yes.
rats everywhere, and it's just and it's funny because I remembered I did some research on the flick a couple days ago when I know we were
Mhm.
doing this, and I found some interesting stuff. Like, I guess David Fincher was really
Yes.
inspired by the look of the
Yes.
movie for the production design of Seven,
Yes.
being Seven,
Mhm.
because everything was so dark and rainy and stuff like that. And he's like, yeah, we should do that, but make it like dark and rainy now.
Yes. Yes. Well,
And
because going back and rewatching this thing just a few years ago, I'm like, this reminds me so much of Seven.
it's yeah,
Just
'cause
some of the production design, some of the shots,
it's
some of the atmosphere.
so bleak.
Mhm.
What? I'm coming, goddammit. What do you think? I did it all.
Such a bleak outlook on, because of global warming. So
Yes.
it's secretly a giant allegory for global warming.
Right?
Don't stop global warming or things will flood and you'll get
Giant
demons,
10-foot rat
cyclones.
monsters. But yeah, I have a pretty similar story about when I first saw this
Yeah,
movie.
when did you see it?
We were on some cockamamie road trip as a family when I was a kid, and we were at some, hole in the wall hotel, and it was raining outside. And I think our van wouldn't start or something, so my dad was out trying to do that. And my brother Nick and I were just flipping through the channels, and we came across it again, probably in the middle of the damn thing.
Yeah.
But the visuals were so striking, and Rutger Hauer's performance was so captivating and charming and crazy, and it baked into my brain all these
Oh yeah.
images, and that he was constantly eating chocolates and just chain smoking. And it was just it left such an imprint on me that for the longest time we didn't know what it was called.
Oh yeah, that sucks.
We didn't know what it was called. So I mean, I would catch it here and there on HBO or TNT or TBS, but I still didn't know what it was until
Back in the
probably,
good old Yeah,
yeah,
back in the good
before
old
the
cable
internet.
days.
And that's the way it was, and we liked it. Progress flabberty.
I
You have
think,
to actually wait till the movie's done to find out what it was called.
right? Or you had to have the TV guide or something, which we never had.
Right,
But
yeah.
it probably wasn't until the late 90s when I finally figured out the name of the movie and was able to get my own copy of it and have it and watch it as much as I wanted to.
Right.
And my brother and I still talk about this movie and how much we love it because we were both so impacted by it.
Yeah.
But and because when you're a kid, you love the big guns and the monster and just the weird stuff. And oh my God, there's boobies.
Oh yeah, of course.
But
You can't make a movie like this without boobies. If you got
no,
guns, you gotta have tits. I
you
mean,
got to
it's just
have those as well. But watching it as an adult, the performances are what do it for me now.
it's because they're so straight.
Yes.
They're not played for comedy. They're played so like this is serious.
Right.
And so like, which is great, you know, when you want to approach something as an actor with that kind of degree, no matter what the material is, that's great. But the fact that all the other things in the film are so out there,
Just
circling
absurd.
around these performances, just makes you focus that much more on it and be like, how are these people so serious in this movie?
Right.
But at the same time, you're so drawn to their performance. You're like, this is great. You're like, I can't not stop watching this.
Well, yeah, and let's talk about some of the actors. I mean, we have Rutger Hauer, who
Oh,
is,
yeah.
I mean, you can't beat him. He's the one and only Rutger Hauer.
Yeah.
We have Kim Cattrall, who plays Michelle.
Yeah.
Doesn't get a lot of stuff to do. She's just kind of the love interest, damsel in distress at times.
Right.
And she still has her haircut from Star Trek V.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the whole reason she's got the black bob. They're just like, just keep it.
Right? It fits. It works.
You
It
know,
works
in that
perfectly.
that kind of world, it would work, you know.
Mhm.
You know, but and the rest of her costume is real interesting because it's like the whole time she just wears like a really flimsy dress, and then she has this big trench coat on, and like that's it. And you're like, okay, was she like? Why did she leave the house like that? Like,
Right?
put
She in
on
the
more if you're gonna be-
pajamas.
because she's like, I always come to London to blah, like, well, so you were traveling, like, so maybe okay the coat, but when you want a little bit more, but I guess not because she's Kim Cattrall.
Yep. And then we have Alistair Duncan, who is the rest are pretty much British character actors who you never heard of. You didn't know who they were when you first see this thing. And he plays Detective Dick Durkin, who's
And he's
such
so
a
fantastic. He
He's
plays
so
it straight as an arrow.
Well, I come from Lochgilphead in Argyll, but we moved to Glasgow when I was 4. And I got my first degree there. Then I did postgraduate in Edinburgh, and after I decided to join the police, I went to Oxford.
Stay there.
And he's just so just like, yes, I'm Dick Durkin, you know, and you're like,
yes,
you're okay.
he's
Like,
fully
Dick
committed.
Durkin. Oh yeah, totally. And he doesn't waver. I mean, his character is just so dead on, and he's not deadpan, but he's he just approaches everything with a kind of a oh well, all right.
Yes, he's very analytical, always thinking and trying to dissect things. He doesn't get, I mean, he gets to a point where he almost fast forward goes through what Rutger Hauer went through after his partner dies, where he's drinking the coffee, he's eating the sugar, and he's starting to smoke, and he's like, we need guns. We need big fucking guns.
Big fucking guns.
Big fucking gun. What the hell's she on? Chocolate.
And at the end of it, you know, when the climax, he's wearing like one of Rutger's like leather jackets.
Yeah, so he's completely transformed.
He's turning into like Rutger Hauer 2.0.
Right. Well, then we have some now very well-known character actors. We have Michael J. Pollard as the rat catcher. We have Alan Armstrong as Chief Thrasher, who's just great, especially when he goes on his little rants and stuff.
Your dog. Come back.
What am I supposed to do? Put out an APB on some fucking guy who looks like the devil, answers to the name of Lucifer? Yeah, and you. I suppose he's got 2 fucking horns sticking out of his head. Yeah, long fucking tail. Back out of the way with you.
Oh my God. And then we have Pete Postlethwaite as the nemesis cop, who's always up in Rutger Hauer's face.
He's technically like he's telling him like he works like in the like the not the corner but like the evidence kind of department, kind of like CSI for what they had then, I guess, because he's always the one cataloging, you know, because good old Stone's like, do this. He's like, oh, you're not my fucking boss, you know. He's always trying to make him collect evidence and take stuff in. He's like, no. And it's the tension between them is just like hilarious, and you just get to watch Rutger Hauer throw him against the wall
Right?
5 or 6 times.
You got a problem with that?
Yeah, I have the same problem I've got with you. Who the fuck do you think you are, Stone?
Hey, you bring this to the lab right now. I don't have time for this.
Don't think everybody's not going to hear about this, Stone, because they are.
Yeah, I mean, even though this came out in 92, it's very much reminiscent of that 80s buddy cop movie. It's got the
Well-
familiar tropes and relationships of those
Well,
films.
yeah, when the script was originally written, it was called Pentagram, and it was about 2 cops in LA
Hmm.
chasing down a serial killer who had a satanic bent to him. So it was kind of like Lethal Weapon with a little Satanism thrown in,
Yeah.
and that's what was really hot at that point in the 80s,
Mhm.
because Lethal Weapon was such a huge hit, and people's like, buddy cop,
Buddy
come on,
cop.
and they threw in some satanic stuff and the killer to make it a little different, and maybe to give it a twist on it. But then it just went through all these drafts, and all of a sudden it turned into the future with
Right?
flooded place, and no, not LA, London, which was really interesting how that kind of, they don't really detail how that happened, but it happened.
Well, yeah. Well, because before they were able to get it produced, the first Power came out
Oh, that's right.
with Lou Diamond Phillips, which was too similar. So they're like, we need to change this up. And I mean, even by the time that Rutger Hauer signed on, and even as they were shooting it, they were still changing some stuff,
Right.
which is kind of reflected in, because there's some loose threads and plot points that are not fully explained in this film.
It
Just a
don't make
few.
sense to me. What are you talking about?
Right. And it doesn't matter in the long run, because
Right.
that's not why you enjoy a film like this.
Oh yeah, of course not. But it's just so interesting how it evolved and how
Mhm.
it became what it is. And when you think about what it could have been, at the same time, you're like, there's no way it wouldn't have been as good as it is now.
Right? No, there's no way.
All
And
the craziness they packed in made it so much
yes.
awesome.
And I mean, with all the remakes and stuff going on now, this is the kind of film that you should try a remake of.
Yeah, right.
There's a lot of 80s and early 90s sci-fi / horror films that have pretty strong scripts underneath them. They just didn't have the budget to necessarily pull off everything that they needed to pull off. Like
Or they
this,
had problems and
and
all kinds of
production
stuff that
issues,
yeah.
and this film was also released the same week of the LA riots.
The riots. Yeah, it makes you wonder how it would have done if people weren't afraid to go out and see a movie.
Yeah, or
Like
just
how much more money would have.
captivated and so consumed by watching these riots unfold.
Yeah, right.
And because there's films like Runaway with Tom Selleck. I don't know if you've ever seen that. That's another great film that would be a great remake. I mean, it is a good film. It's got a very strong sci-fi script behind it, but they just didn't quite have the budget to pull everything off.
Right.
And so I wish some of these films would get that remake treatment. I mean, I will always love this film, but there's so much potential in a story like this for stuff that they couldn't quite do, and the fact they had to rush the creature design, which
Yeah,
for
Stephen
what they
Knight had like, what was it, like 2 weeks?
3 weeks, something like that. Yeah,
And then post-production was like not even a month.
yeah, it was just insane, the time constraints they
Everything was
had.
just like mashed together to get it made, and it was crazy.
Well, then the director, Tony Malam, I think is
Yeah,
his name,
He quit.
he pieced out. He's like, I've had enough of this shit, I'm leaving.
Yeah,
And
he was done.
yeah, and so it was left up to what was his name? Ian Sharp,
Ian Sharp, yeah.
who has done some other stuff. He did like second unit director, I think, on Roger Rabbit. So,
Yeah, he'd been doing a bunch of stuff.
Mhm.
But yeah, so yeah, he was just so stressful with all the rewrites and everything. The director was like, can't do this.
I can't.
do this.
I can't handle it anymore.
Give me a credit for what I did and I'm done. And that's just because it's funny, because when that kind of thing happens, you're like, okay, this is either going to be a really bad movie or a really awesome movie.
Right?
Because sometimes all that crazy shit behind the scenes makes it like this. It's just like a stew of like everything.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, it has like something for everybody.
It does.
It is. It's like a buddy cop movie. It's a serial killer movie. It's a monster movie. You got Kim Cattrall's boobs. You got
Right?
all the guns and the drowned sci-fi kind of angle and the futuristic. It's just such like a giant duck press.
It is.
And it's just fascinating to watch.
Well, and then the production design is also a thing that I really love about this movie, and we kind of touched on it with the Seven stuff, but
Mhm.
it's almost like this. I mean, you get a little bit of, it's almost like cyberpunk-ish kind
Yeah,
of shit, you
yeah.
know? And then with all the stuff going on with like the rat infestation and the pollution and the global warming stuff, you get, it's almost like Verhoeven-esque world building, because you get there's signs everywhere that show like the social satire of what's going on, and there's radio spots and news clips
Play
and things like
kids,
that.
stop the smog, and
Yes,
all
very
kinds of
much
stuff.
so. I love all that shit.
While the United States plots yet another UN resolution on global warming, London continues to suffer.
One of my favorite bits is a Rutger Hauer. He's coming back into the police station, and they show on the wall it says floor 1, medical, floor 2, evidence, like stuff. And in the box it says basement. There's this big sticker across it that says flooded.
Yes.
It's just like, yeah, don't go down there. It's flooded.
Just-
Whatever, we'll deal with it.
Fuck it, we'll abandon it. We can't do anything about it.
Just those neat little touches, that all these details that help bring the world to life.
Hmm.
That leap out at you. And when you go back and watch it more and more, you pick up one more every time.
You do. You really, really do. There's so much stuff to just kind of pick through with this movie.
Yeah.
I also like, because it's set in the far distant future of 2008.
2008, yeah.
And I love these kind of movies where it's the future, but everything still looks like shit.
Right.
Like when you go into, like you said, when he goes into the police station, everything is very dingy, very analog, you know,
Everything is gross.
everything is gross and probably smells musty as
Like,
hell.
yeah, like the production and like the design between Harley Stone's apartment, everything is just everywhere and disgusting, and there's pigeons flying all over,
Yes.
feathers everywhere, and
Better watch your coat. I love greasy stuff.
there's this great scene where he gets up in the morning and there's a cup of coffee with cigarettes in it, and he just literally picks it up, drinks it, and is like, "Ah," and you're like, no, why?
He sells it so well.
Yeah, and then Kim Cattrall, he leaves the heart and the chocolates for her on the door, and she just takes one off that nasty fridge and eats it. And you're
Right?
like,
Oh, God.
but you're like, what else can they do?
Right?
Gross and dingy. They gotta, it's not like they gotta just eat what they can and live that way because they
Yeah.
got no choice.
Yeah, and he doesn't give a shit what his apartment looks like or what he looks like. Like he like picks up a hubcap and he's got like a grill brush and he's brushing his hair.
He brushes his hair once.
Yeah, he's like,
Yeah, okay.
fuck, it's good enough. Oh my God. And while this movie isn't, and their performances aren't played comedically or for a laugh, this film is so fucking funny.
God, it's hilarious. I mean, the first time you see Rutger Hauer, he's walking out of the police station, and all decked out with his gun across his back. He walks into this grungy club, and the first thing he does is show his badge to a dog.
Police, dickhead.
The freaking, what is it, a Rottweiler?
Yes.
I think, yeah, he shows it like to guarding the club. He's like, police, dickhead. Like,
Yeah.
you're talking to a dog. You're showing your dog, you're showing a dog your badge. Like, from that point, you're like, this is going to be awesome.
Right? That sets the tone for the movie right
Yeah.
there.
Like, I have to watch the rest of this now, no matter what.
Exactly. And just like when they're getting chewed out by the chief, and they have these little one-liners.
I'm surprised you don't have a grenade launcher.
Couldn't get a permit.
This isn't funny.
It's you can't look away from it.
You can't.
And I mean, it's it just because they probably didn't mean, some of the lines are intentionally funny, but some of them aren't. But it comes out that way just because of the whole aura of the film. I mean, everything is just so over the top
Uh-huh.
and unrelentingly crazed from the get-go that you're just like I can't not laugh at this. But at the same time you're enjoying the shit out of it because the whole thing is up here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like it's like set at 11 the whole movie. And it never comes down from that, and that's just one of the great
No,
things
it just keeps amping up, and you hit that crescendo when Durkin finally loses it, and they're taking all the guns, and the guy's like, "You need to sign for this." I mean, they're grabbing like 2 of each of all the stuff, grenade launchers and bombs, and oh my god,
Yeah, we need guns. Like, here, take this, and he's got his coffee, and he literally just over his shoulder. Like, what does the floor of that police station look like?
very sticky.
You on edge? Yeah, good. Have one of these.
Everybody throws their coffee. People just smoke, and all they eat is chocolate. And you're just like, that's. And I mean, they're walking out of the police station, and they're throwing it in the backseat of their cars, like full cups of coffee you see fly everywhere, and it's just which is hilarious because you're like, well, yeah, why would they care? I mean,
Right?
look at the rest of the world. It's not pristine. Like, it's not like
No.
anything's gonna get cleaned up.
It's a little late to start recycling.
Yeah. So you're like, yeah, why not? Why wouldn't they? Why would they not do that?
A little past the point of no return on everything. But there's also, I mean, this isn't a very deep film.
No.
I mean, there's some semblance of some religious undertones. Like this film has an opening crawl, like all good sci-fi films do.
Yeah.
And they talk about 40 days and 40 nights of rain.
Mhm.
And then there's several scenes where they drive past, I think it's St. Paul's Cathedral.
Yeah.
And then there's a few Bible quotes thrown out when they're trying to describe the motivations of the monster, which are never quite clear, but who gives a shit?
Here's the monster.
Right? But this monster, I mean, its mechanisms are pretty fucking cool. I mean, it rips people's hearts out through their chest, and there's just blood everywhere.
And then eats them.
Yes. And it retains all the DNA from each one of its victims, which was a cool idea,
Yeah.
but just didn't go anywhere.
It has the DNA structure of all its victims.
Says here it's got rat DNA.
Yeah. It's got your DNA too.
Well, it kind of did. I mean, you got the end
Yes.
when they kill the thing, and Rutgers rips its heart out, is holding it. You can hear all the soul screaming in its heart.
Yes.
So you're like, so it's like, I guess he was like, what is he? Is he Satan? Is he a giant mutant rat? Is he just
Right.
a killer? Like, does anybody really know?
I don't think anybody does know, but
Right.
well, because there's this psychic link,
Right.
which is, how Rutger Hauer's character is able to know possibly where he's going to strike next. He hears the heartbeat.
Right.
And that's because when the monster's first victim, which was Harley's partner, who is was Michelle's husband, he's got that big giant scar that is that psychic link between the two. And I always thought that was a cool mechanism to use in this kind of film.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so too. And it's like I said, a bit of everything for everybody, and it's kind of nifty because then you get to see the killer lurking around, and every time, it's a good old suspense mechanism. You hear the heartbeat out there, you're like, oh, he's around. Look,
Right?
he might be over there.
Yeah. Well,
And
I like to reference Jaws a lot because it's my favorite movie, but it is the Jaws concept. You don't see the movie right away, but you hear that da-da, da-da, or you see the fin, or you see the barrels, stuff like that are signifiers of the creature being near. And I think they utilize that pretty well in this movie.
Show me your face!
It's interesting though, because they Rutger Hauer always knows he's around because he can hear the heartbeat and he's connected. And there's that great moment in the subway car at the end where he's looking for him. And he's got his giant revolving shotgun, and he's like, shit, I'm out. And he's facing this door, which is just darkness behind him, and can't hear a thing, can't see anything. And then he turns around, and then Thing's hand just right on his head.
That is my favorite shot of the entire movie.
Yeah.
It's so effective.
Everything just stops, and he's just like, oh, and you're like, oh, you can just feel your asshole pucker.
Yes.
Because you're just like, oh, here we go. And he's just kind of like, hi, I love you, kind of deal. And it's just such a great little ooh out of nowhere, and it shows them the physical connection between them when before all was psychic. Like, here I am, I'm finally touching you and reaching out to you like I did before.
Yes.
And because his hand moves over where the scar is, just like, oh, you remember this? Yeah, this is
remember me?
Yeah.
They don't really talk about what the monster's plan is completely. It's kind of fuzzy. I mean, they talk about the Scorpio astrological symbols and that it's
it
a
all
water
feels like
sign.
it all feels like the killer's doing this not because he wants to, but they make it seem like he has to.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like it's some kind of like he's some kind of collector of souls, like for the devil or something.
Like he's on a quest to.
Yeah, like that's his whole job.
He's got a quota.
Yeah. Stupid tide keeps rising, getting in my way, and it's very interesting the way they put it. But at the same time, you're like, and I just love how they it's actually really smart in the half-assed way that they kind of did that, like gave the connections and everything, because your brain automatically looks for connections and puzzles.
Yes.
All the time. And then they did this great part where he's like, he's got rat DNA. It's 2008. What year is it? The year of the rat. And you're like, it works.
25th year, 78 cycle. The Chinese calendar, 2008 now, this year.
What are you on about?
2008 is the year.
The rat.
Why?
Yes.
They were onto something for a second, but then you lost me. Like,
right.
And so it makes you feel like you're watching, you're like, it makes sense. But then when it's done and you sit back and you're like, that did not make sense.
No.
Well, you're involved in the movie, they got you. But then,
yes.
Once
you're done and then you start thinking about it, you're like, Well, they do that again because Durkin gets the symbol carved on his chest. He's like, what has he done to me? And Harley's got him laying on the floor because he's realized that the Scorpio symbol is a map for some reason.
It's pointing to Cannon Street.
That's where Foster's going.
It's taking you back. It's completing the circle.
A map pointing into the Thames.
Yes. So that's
he gets like this mirror and he draws it like upside down on the mirror and it's like, oh, not only is a map, but it's inverted this way toward the Thames. And you're like, okay, yeah.
Sure.
Why not?
I'm already along on this ride. Let's just keep going.
Yeah, right. And then they get there and Kim Cattrall is hanging from the roof in the subway and there's a circle of light coming down. He says, don't break it.
Yeah.
You're like, why can't you break the circle of light? What does it have to do with because there's a lot of circle symbolism.
Yes, there is.
Circle stuff and then he's bringing you back to the beginning. You're circling around. He's completing the circle. There's a circle in the water. Don't break it. And you're like, it all sounds great. But at the end of the day, like, where were you going with this? Because you're like, oh, it's making sense. Oh no, left turn. Like, oh no, that didn't work.
Yeah, and I mean the spirit of the film kind of knows that it's not going to explain everything to you because there's that great line where they're like, okay, is it Satan? And they're like, I don't care. And I think it's Rutger Hauer's line where he says Satan is in deep shit.
If I were a religious man, I would say this is Satan. Well, Satan's in
It's a
deep
deep shit.
If I were a religious human being and not the reasoning person I think I am, I wouldn't say this thing thinks it's Satan. I'd say it is Satan.
Well, Satan is a deep shit.
Like, of course, Rutger Hauer would say that. I mean, Harley Stone would never not say that.
No.
I'm working with a guy called Harley.
You think that's funny? What's so great about Dick Durkin?
It's just so much fun.
It is so much fun. And I mean, it got such terrible reviews when it first came out. And it had a budget of 7 million. Opening weekend was like 2.2 million. And I think overall it took in just over 5.
Yeah, so it only lost 2 million, which is, for a film of that magnitude, is not bad.
No, it's not.
Not bad. I mean, everybody wants to make the budget back and make scores of money and retire off the one movie they made, but for only being just that much under their original budget, that's really not bad, even with the riots going on.
Right. Well, then the writer, Gary Scott Thompson, I did not realize this, but he wrote Hollow Man, I think. And then he created the Fast and Furious.
Yeah,
movies.
he did, yeah.
I saw that and I was just like,
yeah, he's living high and large now.
oh yeah, he's getting lots of residuals.
Yeah.
Because each one of those sequels, it says, I mean, he gets a writing credit for the characters that he created.
Yeah.
It's just like, damn.
Oh yeah.
But that's another script that was written in the 80s.
Yep.
Was Fast and the Furious.
Yeah. So many. It's just mind-boggling to me that there's so many really good scripts out there that nobody's either ever read or have ever been made because of time, budget, or resources that are just on a shelf somewhere in some studio. And you're just like, well, stories just waiting to be made, and they could be fantastic, but they're not. I mean, in the late 80s and early 90s, the spec script boom in Hollywood was
right,
because people, all agents and directors, everybody got together and was like, okay, so it's the 90s now and we're running out of ideas, so if something looks cool, just buy it.
Just fucking buy it and make it.
people were selling their first scripts, original scripts, right and left, new stuff, because they were literally buying everything and offering top dollar just to get new stuff into the pipeline. And as a result, you get movies like this.
Yeah.
That just are that are made out of nowhere, that are just so astonishingly crazily original. That was one person thought up, wrote, and they bought it and they made it, and it was crazy. And then because it didn't do very well, or it got really bad reviews because of how fast it was made, or things didn't come together, the script went through so many changes, it didn't make much money, and that writer didn't get any other jobs.
Yeah.
And you're just wondering how much more other stuff he could have done in the 80s that could have been made in the 90s, that could have been made before he made Fast and Furious, and things all those writers could have done.
Yeah.
The good part is you get gems like this that kind of just came out of the 90s, out of the boom, that were scooped up and made and put out there, but then kind of faded away, waiting to be rediscovered by people. And that's so much fun.
And I try to recommend this movie to a lot of people, and I don't know because a lot of people don't care for this film. Either they just don't quite get it, or the absurdity of it turns them off, or they just see it as some kind of, oh, well, that's a bad movie.
Yeah, either that, or because of the storyline is, not everything makes sense.
No.
A lot of people are like, if it doesn't make sense, it's crap.
Yeah.
It's so what? But sometimes you got to watch a movie that doesn't make sense. It's just so balls out that it's literally it's no different from eating a bowl of sugar. You're just like, this is great, more. And then when you're done, you're like, oh, that was not the best thing for me, but it was awesome.
And then in the morning, you have your regrets.
Yeah, right. wake up in the morning fat, like, oh, what did I do?
But talking about Rutger Hauer and just the legacy that he left behind,
Mhm.
just so many. Whenever he took a performance, he committed fully. You weren't getting a half-ass performance from Rutger Hauer
Nope.
at all.
No.
And he's done so many movies like this that people just don't watch. I mean, you have Blade Runner, of course. You have The Hitcher, which is one of his best performances of all
Oh, yeah.
time. But then there's things like Paul Verhoeven's Flesh and Blood
Yep.
that not a lot of people have seen, which
Yeah.
was Verhoeven's first English language film.
Yeah.
And it's got Jennifer Jason Leigh in it,
Mhm.
a lot of her in it.
Well, yeah. And then you got Lady Hawk.
Yes,
Which
another.
somehow it was like a big thing when it came out because of the sword and sorcery boom in the 80s.
Mhm.
And it kind of just like fell through the cracks.
Yeah,
And a
and
lot of people I talk to don't even know about it.
no.
And it's sad because it's actually a lot of fun movie especially with Matthew Broderick.
Yes, it is very fun.
Oh yeah. One of my favorite parts of that whole movie is when he's like, at the very beginning going through the forest and he hears people, he's like, "Who's that, Pierre? I'm glad you brought your sword, Gunderson. Quickly, back to the," and he's like,
I'm not alone.
Yeah. It's just like the whole movie has great little stuff like that in it.
I talk to God all the time. And no offense, but he never mentioned you.
No?
And it's just, yeah. And Hobo with a Shotgun is, I fucking love that movie. I was like, this is going to be the most insane nut job of a movie. And it was Rutger Hauer did such a great job.
Mm-hmm.
And it was so enthralling and so gritty and grimy and just like kind of like this one, and it's just so visually interesting. You can't stop watching it.
Mm-hmm. Another one I like with him in it is Surviving the Game.
Oh yeah.
And there you get a ton of great actors like this. You've got Rutger Hauer, you've got Gary Busey.
Oh yeah, never go wrong with Gary Busey.
You can never go wrong with Gary Busey. There's a ton of great character actors in that movie as well. Ice-T, that's such a crazy movie, but I love it.
Observe your food. Smell it. Touch it. Put your mind into it. And then when you're finally ready, consume it slowly.
Getting back to Split Second, I think it just had a Blu-ray release in the past few years, which is cool because it's got so many extras. It's got a ton of commentaries on it by several different people that worked on the film in totally different aspects of the film. And I think it's becoming more and more of a cult film.
Oh yeah.
Within the past 4 to 5 years, which is great to see. Because more people need to watch this. I mean, even if they don't care for the plot necessarily, the performances, the production design, just the crazy shit that goes on in this movie, I think is so entertaining. And also I don't want to use the word inspiring, but it juices up your imagination.
Yeah, you've got everything in it, and you're just well, you said it lights up your brain. You're like, this is crazy. Like, if somebody can write this and get this made, then I can make my own crazy movie,
right?
And whatever I want and put whatever I want in it. And it's just yeah, talk about a movie that really gets you going.
It does.
And I can't, it's on my wish list, the Blu-ray. I can't imagine what it's going to look like on Blu-ray.
Yeah.
Like, it's going to be so awesome.
Well, there's some of those, like the opening shots where he's going down the river and there's those giant, I don't even know what the fuck.
Like giant shoes. Like, what
they do, I don't know, but they look fucking cool.
They're probably like some kind of thermal reactor.
Yeah.
Some other sci-fi token thing. that they put in every movie. Energy reactor, nuclear bunker or something, you know.
Something crazy like
But
that.
yeah, like, did they build those? Did they salvage those? Like,
I think they're like hydroelectric engines or something that are just mainstays there on the river. I don't know if they're still there, but that's what they look like to me. But they look cool and futuristic because you don't know what the fuck they are when you're looking at them. You know,
something futuristic.
and cops are driving around on, hydrofoils and things like that.
Yeah. And they're driving Jeeps through like 4 feet of water.
Yeah, and
Breaks everywhere.
I just love that combination of it's the future, but technology has not advanced really at all.
Yeah. Yeah, you're making the future with what we have now because, well, it's what we got now.
Hmm. And it uses so many cool tricks to give you a sense of what the monster is without showing you. I mean, you have the heartbeat stuff and things like that, but then you have when they do the tooth impressions on the heart that gets sent to the police station, and it's this gnarly long tooth.
These are
You
like
don't
this,
know what the
yeah.
fuck it is. It's just creepy looking. And then when there's the victim in the apartment complex, he's like painted the ceiling with the Scorpio symbol and all this blood. And they make the offhanded comment, well, to do it, he'd have to be 10 feet tall.
Yeah.
I wonder if he stood on the bed to paint it.
If he did, he shouldn't be too hard to find.
Why?
He'd have to be 10 feet tall.
And there's so many little things like that that are so clever that work and keep you guessing about what's going on.
Yeah, because then when Cottrell's alone in the apartment showering and he goes in to spook on her, he goes up to the car with his claws, wrenches the back open. And you're like, okay, cool. But then he also takes the shotgun. Yeah. And later you see him using the
shotgun.
Like a person on Rutger Hauer. So you're like, so he's like a monster, but he knows how to handle weaponry, like modern weaponry. And then he like, so that's just like so many levels makes you like, what is this thing?
Yeah, it makes your imagination go wild because like when just watching it a few years ago, I was like trying to think where they could have taken it.
Yeah.
Just like hypotheticals. I'm like, well, maybe it's like his old partner who has like been mutated and he's trying to get revenge because Harley or had an affair with his wife. I mean, there's so many avenues you could go down.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah, I thought one of my first thoughts was it was like a homeless person, like someone who like worked for the rat catcher.
Yeah.
Was down trying to catch rats and got stuck down there. And then he got maybe bit by rats and then their virus mutated his body and he turned into this thing.
Right.
You know, and because he's pissed off that happened, he's taking it out on the whole city. You know, and then it's just so many possibilities that just leaves it like really open-ended. And I don't know if they probably didn't mean to do that, but at the same time you're like, well, it's kind of what it works. And you're like, what is he? You don't know. You find out. Think about it. Think up your theory.
Exactly. And I gravitate towards those films that don't answer all of your questions.
Oh yeah.
Because that gets your imagination going, that keeps you guessing, that makes you think and question and analyze things that are going on in the film to look for those connections.
Yeah. Yeah. The first time I saw Basic Instinct, when that movie ended, I was so mad because I was so confused.
Right?
Like, okay, is Catherine killing people or not? Like, who did what? And it was funny because I remember reading a story Joe Esterhazy wrote in the Devil's Guide to Hollywood, and he said like people would come up to him and be like, "So was Catherine the killer or not?" You know, if they instead of telling them, he'd be like, "Go back and watch the movie again. Detail in there you missed, and I'll answer your question." And did they get the detail? Probably not. But he made people keep going back and watching it and keep the ticket sales keep
Right.
going up and up and up. But at the same time, it's nice because when you sit back and you look at it and you realize what he did do with the writing, then you're like, okay, wow, because it all did make sense, but it threw me for such a loop that I didn't figure that out until the movie was over, which is awesome because it makes you think about the movie so much more after you're done watching it. You're not just go watch it, oh fun, and then you're done.
Yeah.
You're like, wait a minute, I have to see this again, like right now.
You want those questions answered, so you seek out those answers by continually watching it over and over and over again and studying it and trying to find out what makes sense inside of it.
Yeah, and that's to me that's one of the great skill of writing is, you know, when you write something and everything makes and the audience understands what's going on right away, that's great writing. But when you make things make, especially in like a mystery, you make things 100% logical and stuff, and it's just this giant puzzle put together that you, of the writer, has put it together, but the audience still has it in their mind. And that's so much harder to do because you want them to figure it out, but not figure it out at the same time. And you're like, how do you do that? You know, and it takes a lot of practice. I haven't mastered it yet. I doubt I will.
To me,
But
it's magic because
it is,
I don't
totally.
understand it, and they do it so well. I'm just like, that's magic to me.
Yeah, it's like a giant magic trick. It's like the first time I saw The Prestige, I
Yep.
literally was like, I have to see this again right now. And
hmm
after I saw it again, I was like, okay, I have to see it again to make sure I knew what I figured out was what really happened. And that's just one of the great alluring things about great writing is it can make you discuss things and revisualize movies your own way and build theories and whatnot in your head to figure out and kind of appreciate the drama and all the things happening on the screen.
I very much agree.
Unfortunately, they could have gone a little farther with Split Second. But
Yes. Yes, they weren't quite to
they put a
that
lot of
finish
stuff out
line.
there, and you're like, okay, but oh no, wait a minute. I don't think they really knew what they were doing here.
No, they had little nuggets of stuff. They were throwing all the pasta at the wall and none of it stuck.
Right? Yeah,
But I appreciated all the pasta.
yeah. The pasta was a lot of fun.
Yes, it was. And I think that's why I still continue to like this movie so much because I can put it on and just have a good time watching it.
Yeah, yeah. You can't not finish this movie once you
No.
start, even when you know what's going to happen, because it's just so gleefully rambunctious.
It's
Like,
almost decadent.
yeah, it's like a snack,
Yes.
like a bowl of
A
sugar.
bowl of sugar.
Like, oh, I just watched
Bag
the
of chocolate.
illustration. Yeah, okay, chocolate time.
That's I love that when he's making the cup of coffee at the police station and he's just like half of it's sugar and then a little bit of coffee.
And he steals people's pens and
To stir it up with.
that's just these small little things that are just so crazy ridiculous that just make such a bigger picture that adds to the glee. You're just like, this is great.
It's
This
so
is
good.
such a great movie. I love this movie.
I love this movie. It's so much fun.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad you came on and talked to me about it because I love talking about these movies so that more people can discover them and more people can fall in love with them or at least just experience them.
At least watch it. Yeah.
Just go watch it. I mean, this thing is streaming on several platforms. It's on Amazon. I think it's on Tubi. I think it's on Vudu. You can find this film very
Yeah,
easily to watch.
which is great because for a while it was nowhere.
It was nowhere. You could
It
not
was just
find it.
gone, and it's just like, okay, and it was so frustrating because I would tell people like you. I tell the people about this movie. They'd be like, "Well, where can I watch it?" And I'd be like,
I don't
"I
know.
don't know."
Go find it.
Back when we were kids, because then when I would go visit Chad at his house in Kansas, we would always go to the Blockbuster, and it was always on the shelf.
Yes.
You saw the box there with Rutger with his gun and the big thing behind him, and you're just like, sweet.
One of my favorite VHS covers.
Oh
It's
yeah,
so
totally.
cool. It's so fucking cool.
He's seen the future. Now he has to kill it. Like that's what you want. And it was and after we saw it for the first time on TV, and then when we saw it, we're like, oh, and we went out and rented it to watch the whole thing. And we were like, oh, okay, yeah, it still doesn't make sense, but we still love it.
Right.
And so yeah, and now that it's back on streaming and it's finally getting on the Blu-ray, like all these, just one of all these great little movies that have been forgotten and fallen through the cracks, which are just gobs of fun.
Yep.
That you just can't not see in your lifetime at least once. So yeah, I remember going through, not a few months ago through Amazon and stuff like that, and I saw it on Amazon. I was like, I think I even Facebooked it. I'm like, holy shit, you guys, Split Second is on Amazon. Oh, so it was. I love this movie.
I do too. Well, thank you so much for coming on and talking with me about it. We'll do more of these in the future.
Oh, totally. I've got a list.
Yes. I look so forward to the future of just getting to talk about more of these kind of films and sharing them with the general public and getting more people interested in these kind of films and appreciating them for what they are.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for coming on. Where can people find you?
Oh, they can find me on Amazon because I have my book,
Monster Box
Tales, which is a bunch of scary short stories, which people are really seeming to love, and which is really cool. You can also find me on IMDb. I always say that backwards. I don't know why. You can look me up by my name. You can see The Dinner Party is up there, and then Demigod, and then we have a few other things that I'm working on that I think have posted on there that haven't been produced yet.
Awesome.
So we're getting a bunch of stuff rolling out, and Jim Bullion, my producer and my good friend, who's really, this past few months, he's been really getting stuff set up. Like we've been getting a lot of scripts sent out. He's been meeting a lot of people. He hung out with Juliette Binoche.
Nice.
And he is still good friends with Morgan Freeman. And he's just meeting people right and left. And so we're getting a lot of stuff prepped, I guess, for the next few years that's going to be coming out, which is really exciting.
Awesome. Do we have a release date yet for let's let this motorcycle go past the house. I just love that when that happens.
Yeah.
Do we have a release date yet for Demigod?
It is going to be it's going to be around Halloween, so not on Halloween, but probably beginning of October.
Cool.
Maybe mid. So far, that's the plan right now. Of course, it may change, but we'll see.
That'll be a fun one to watch around Halloween time.
August, I believe, is when we're dropping the official trailer.
Nice.
Which will be fun, and which you've seen, by the way.
I loved it.
So yeah, so we're very excited about all that coming on, and then we also met up with a new distribution network for The Dinner Party, and they are actually going to send it overseas.
Nice.
So we'll see how it does over there, which will be really interesting, to see, because I bet they're going to love it over there.
Yeah, like we said on your interview, it's got food, opera, and sex, so the Europeans will probably love it.
Yeah. So here's hoping.
Hoping, yes. Well, That is going to do it for this episode of I Love This Movie. Thank you, Michael, for joining me. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you next time.
All right.
Bye.
Thanks, Lizzie.
Rutger Hauer. Split second.
Nice timing.
Split second.